Doug Fernandes, one of the great columnists in the country right now, and he works for the Sarasota Herald. And Doug and I have been good friends for years. He was his column. The one thing we were really going to get together last week, but the paper had their major awards ceremony, so he couldn't be on with us last week. He was going to be here to tell us how in the NBA, the Boston Celtics became the first team to be 3 games down and come back and win. Now, Doug, I know that you have on the tip of your tongue the answer to what happened to a 20-point loss at home in Game 7.
Well, I think it just shows you why it's never been done before, why it's so damn tough to win 4 in a row. I mean, to win 3 in a row, listen, if you had watched Game 6 and the way they came back, I thought that they'd come in that 7th game just flying high, and I thought they'd have more emotion and energy than the Heat, and I was completely wrong. And, Cedric Maxwell, who played on the Celtics teams of the 80s, and he's a broadcaster now, basically he said they peed their pants. Basically, and that's exactly what they did. The moment was too big for them. And, when you look at that team, they were railed on by Charles Barkley, by Shaq, by everybody, basically saying they don't have an offense. All they do is hoist up 3-pointers, and they play hero ball, as Shaq says. Somebody comes to the rescue and hits a game-winning shot. That's hero ball. But they don't pass the ball. They depended on 3-pointers. They missed their first 11 3-pointers in that 7th game. So you're thinking, okay, let's try to work for an easy basket. Let's try to get our confidence going. No, they still kept on hoisting them up there. And if they don't hit the threes, they don't have an answer. Very disappointing. I think you're going to see some changes in the offseason. Brown wants one of these mega deals, which is like 30% of a team's salary cap. And I'm sorry, he's just not that complete a ball player to get $200 million, $300 million over the life of a contract. I mean, you saw the guy. He dribbled the ball off his knee more than he did on the floor. I mean, Tatum was hurt. Other guys stepped up in past games. If you look at a guy like Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, if Michael had an off game or whatever, and he never did, Scottie always was there to pick him up and be the second banana. And this was Brown's chance to show in a Game 7 situation, everybody watching, that, hey, if Tatum is injured and hurt, I can carry the load. And he was terrible. And you're going to see some changes in the offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they even try to deal Brown and try to get some draft picks, because it was obvious that they need help besides just those 2 guys. They need more of a bench presence. They need more of a guy down low. Even though they don't play pivot ball anymore in the NBA, I still think you need that banger. But they don't have that. And they're a one-dimensional team, and what you saw was in the Game 7. It was a pathetic performance. And I know I'm going on here, but the Celtics have had a lot of Game 7s in their history. This was one of their worst, if not the worst.
Doug Fernandes, our special guest this 20 minutes. And before we get out of the NBA, let's go to Roger Henderson in Philadelphia, because Roger's been following the NBA, quite honestly, Doug, since the old Philadelphia Warriors. So we're in the same ballpark, Roger.
Yeah, we sure are. Doug, you probably saw last night, I think it was, on they had the 30-30 about Bill Walton and Larry Bird, and that was a great show. I mean, it really was, and brought back a lot of great memories. But we talked about this a little earlier about the NBA. What do you think? What do the Sixers need to do to get over the hump? And would you bring James Harden back if you were at the controls? I wouldn't.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would. I mean, he's getting kind of long in the tooth. But I think Philadelphia, the Celtics had a pass to the finals, and one of them was they were taking on teams that maybe weren't 100%. And that's why everybody in Boston had this ticketed for a championship or at least a finals appearance. Philadelphia, I don't know. I mean, I go back, I'm 61, so the Philadelphia teams I remember were some of the greatest rivalries, the Celtics 76ers in the 80s, when you had Mo Cheeks and Andrew Toney. I mean, the reason the Celtics got Dennis Johnson was because nobody could guard Andrew Toney. So that's the reason they got Dennis Johnson in one of the most lopsided trades in history for Rick Roby, I might add. But, that's the reason they got it. I love that basketball because I'm a purist. And I like the idea is to get the ball close to the rim, right? for a high percentage shot. The closer you get, the more likely you are to sink it. Now it's the exact opposite. You see guys drive the lane, and they have a sure pass to 2 points, and they kick it back out for a three-pointer. It makes no sense. And if you talk to guys like Bob Ryan or old-timers, they don't like the way the game is being played right now. It's AAU ball. It's just hoisted up, and it doesn't seem like these guys take losing that badly. I think their fans take the losses more hard than these players do. I don't think it burns like it was a job for Larry Bird. That was their job, was to win and win championships. I don't think these guys have the same attitude as they did 30 or 40 years ago. That's
my partner when I was broadcasting with the 76ers, Sonny Hill, and Sonny talked over and over and over again that you get to the foul line or in, it's a layup. If you're a pro basketball player and you get to the foul line or in, it's a tee shot. It's just up there, put it in. They get there, as you said, and they throw it back out for a 18, 20-foot, 25-foot shot. Doesn't make any sense. How about the championship game, Doug? Denver. I thought it was one of the worst NBA championship games I ever saw.
Well, it just shows you how dominant Denver is, and it shows you how dominant when you have a big man. And I mean, listen, we're watching one of the best big men to come along in quite a while. I mean, this guy is complete, and I just like the way the offense goes through him. I mean, you never see an offense go through a guy that big. But, I mean, the Celtics, not to get back on the Celtics again, another big thing was their head coach. They made a mistake not giving this guy help, not hiring a veteran assistant out of the gate to help this guy, because it was clear that he was outcoached by Eric Spoelstra in Miami. He was outcoached pretty much everywhere because he hasn't had that experience, and it was only him on the bench. They had no backup, no assistant coach to tell him, hey, Joe, I think you ought to try this. And they were lost. The guy never called timeouts because he didn't know what to tell the players. And I think in Boston anyway, there was some dissension in the locker room about whether the players really thought this guy could lead them to victory. I think there was some serious doubts about his coaching chops. And I think there was a little dissension in the locker room that maybe didn't get out. But there were some problems with that team, and I think one of it is maturity and leadership. They don't have any.
Roger?
Yeah, I just saw the announcement on ESPN, Doug, that the Hawks brought on a couple of new coaches to their staff, and one of them is Mike Bray, the former coach at Notre Dame. So I think that's a perfect example of what you were alluding to with the Celtics, that they needed to get some experience on that bench with a young coach, and it looks like the Hawks are doing exactly what you had said.
Well, I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel, but if you have a guy who's never in a big-time game and you don't have anybody, listen, every major league manager has a bench coach, right?
Right.
And that's baseball, one of the slowest-moving games there is. In a game of basketball where you're going to make split-second decisions, I think you got to have that veteran coach. This guy's never been through the wars like this. And I think it was a disservice by Stevens not to hire somebody. They hired Hill recently, one of the most, well-respected assistant coaches. They just hired him to help Manzula. But I don't like the way the game is played. It's AAU ball, right? All you do is play 30 games in a day. If you lose one game, it's like, okay, let's move on to the next one. And I think these guys have that mentality. It's like, hey, if we lose the game, it's no big deal. There'll be another one. Well, when there's only a 7-game series, to lose a game is a big deal. And I don't think these guys have the same focus as the old-time players did. I think a lot of it is they're more concerned that, did I make NBA first team or second team? Me, not so much the team. It's like, what have I done this year? So, but that's the era we live in, guys. It's like that in every sport.
It is.
You know?
Doug Fernandes, our guest this segment. And Doug, let me 2 points I'd like to bring up. One, I don't know how you officiate the game, number one. And you talked about the dominance, and I agree with you. The dominance of the big man in the middle was overpowered. But, boy, if you just push everybody away, I mean, there's never any fouls called. You just knock everybody down. How can you officiate a game like that?
Well, look, what game was it? Was it the Celtics series or what? There were only 2 free throw shots. The first free throw was not until the third quarter. What does that
Right.
tell you? All they're doing is hoisting up threes. Nobody's rebounding. That's a long rebound. So there's no physical contact where there would be a foul called. All they're doing is hoisting up long-range jumpers, and that's all they work on in practice. Most of these guys don't have a mid-range game. You pull up for a 15-footer open shot. These guys should bang it home every time. Very few guys have a mid-range game. They don't work at it. They're working at the long-range three-point game. And basketball is a beautiful game like baseball when all the facets and aspects are used, like hit and run in baseball or bunting or moving guys over. You don't see that much anymore in baseball. They're all waiting for the home run. And I think in basketball, pivot moves, up and under moves, the hook shot. The hook shot is the only shot that you can't block. And they don't teach that anymore because it's only 2 points. It's only 2 points. It's only 2 points. But I sound like an old man, get off my lawn, but maybe I am. I'm 61 now,
Well,
hey,
Bill Bradley's got a little documentary coming out. In fact, it's next 3 nights. It's going to be shown over in New York. It's probably, I don't know what TV station is finally going to pick it up, but he's had tremendous coverage on it, and he talks about the championship team, and and he said, the one thing you have to remember is when you play basketball, you don't worry about shooting. You worry about scoring. You want to be able to, you don't worry about where you're going to take it. You got to know when you get that ball, you're going to shoot it and you're going to score. You're not going to score from 26 feet away. You're going to score from where you're in a range run by plays. I'm really waiting to see this documentary. I think it's going to be terrific. But I don't know.
Well,
I can't watch the NBA.
Well, listen, if it used to be about finding the best shot, using all 5 guys, pass the ball. The Celtics used to fast break. The ball would never touch the ground. It would be 3 passes, bang, 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 and the ball's down the other end for a basket. But these guys, they're all situated around the 3-point line. You don't see anybody down low calling for the ball because those ISO plays, they don't use them anymore. These guys don't have pivot moves. Remember Kevin McHale? Kevin McHale came out of Minnesota after 4 years, by the way, and he had a developed game. His game was completely developed. And now all you see guys come into the NBA, their game isn't developed because all they work on is that long-distance shooting, and it's not going to change, guys. The 3-point line was instituted as sort of a gimmick, right? Remember the first few years, Chris Ford hit the first 3-pointer in history for the Celtics, but it wasn't used that much. Those finals games in the early 80s, they were all inside, and you saw it getting away from that more and more. And what you have is what you have now.
Well, Doug, it also was the fact of going down to the last minute or minute and a half of the game. They thought that it would eliminate to a degree the automatic fouling, which is a terrible instance in all basketball. You're down 5 points, you just grab a guy and go to the foul line. And I never agreed with that from the beginning. I think it's a weakness of the game. Just grab people. Roger, you're up.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up about with the traditional basketball. The old give and go, okay? I love that play, and that's what I like about women's basketball, Doug. It is still a traditional type of game.
I think if you watch any women's sport, they play fundamentally sound because, listen, they're not the fact is they're not the great athletes. They don't soar through the air like the guys do, so they have to depend on fundamentals. And you're right, they look for the best shot, even though 3-point shooting is paramount in women's basketball, but they play fundamentally sounder than the men do. The men rely on just their talent, right? It's like, I don't have to worry about fundamentals. I got the talent here. Well, so a lot of times that talent is shown to be insufficient, and the girls really know how to play. Sometimes it's better to watch the girls play than the guys. You get a truer sense of the sport, I think, when the girls play than the guys.
Doug Fernandes is our special guest this segment, and Doug, as you can tell by our dialogue, is a Bostonian, and of course he grew up with the game the way we all grew up with the game, and I would think we're ever going to see it again, Doug. I think the game has passed us by.
I think in any sport, people go on YouTube to watch old games. I do. Any NBA game, I go in there to watch Game 6 of the 81 Finals between the Celtics and the 76ers, the Eastern Conference Finals. Where the Celtics came back and then they won Game 7. When they inbounded the ball and it came off the backboard and they won. And I watch those games and I read the comments of the people who watch them too on YouTube, and they're the same as me. It's like, boy, this is the way basketball used to be. This is the way I loved it. These guys didn't like each other, and it showed. I want opponents to hate each other. The Yankees, Red Sox. I don't want guys to be shaking their hands before the game or patting each other on the back after the game. I want you to want to kill this guy. But those days are gone. And they all have the same agents. They all have the same financial advisors. They're not going to be like that with each other. It's just not the case anymore.
Roger?
No, it's a shame, Doug. It really is. And and that irritates me to no end. You know, when you get to first base and the two guys are, tapping each other on the shoulder, or when they make a play at second base, same thing. I mean, you and I grew up where it was competitive, and you weren't buddy with these other guys. And you're exactly right. It's because they have the same agents and they have the same financial guys. And it's all about me. And I think Joel Embiid was a perfect example about being the MVP. Okay. Would it be nice to win a championship? But number one, I'm the league MVP.
After a while, though, and you talk to any kind of athlete, they get in it at first. Maybe they want personal glory, they want statistics, but after a while of not winning, that is supplanted by I just want to win a title. I don't care if I score 10 points or 20 points or hit 50 home runs or whatever. I just want to win. I'm sick of losing. And after a while, those individual accomplishments, they fade if you're always going home at the end of the season a loser. After a while, it becomes more of what's going to be remembered more after I retire? What I hit in 19 whatever, or how many championships I won. It always counts how many pelts you have on the wall. And I think that's why Tom Brady will always be ranked near the top, if not the top of quarterbacks, because how many championships he won. Dan Marino, sorry, Dan, you got in one Super Bowl and you got blown out by the 49ers. So it's like you don't really put Marino in the same company as maybe a John Elway who won 2 titles. It's just the way athletes are judged, over time anyway.
Doug, let's stay with football for a second. Can Bill Belichick, he's now going 2.5, almost 3 years, really strongly got into the playoffs, but not really a threat to win anything. Can he turn it around?
No, I think right now that you saw Aaron Rodgers join the Jets, I think the Patriots will be looking up at teams now. Listen, they had their run. You will never see a 20-year run like that ever again, where it's the same head coach and the same quarterback with different players shuffling in and out, and they still won titles. You won't see that kind of marriage again. And I think you see right now what Tom Brady meant to Bill Belichick and the Patriots. I mean, it just wasn't him. They had guys like Vrabel and tough competitors, but it just shows you if you don't have a superior quarterback, he's not going to be able to lift up the talent around him. Brady made the guys around him better because he was so good. Now that they have Mac Jones, I mean, the jury is still out on him. I think the Patriots will give him one more year, but if he better show improvement under Bill O'Brien. They had Matt Patricia. Belichick asked him to be offensive coordinator. He was never done that before. It was a favor to him. He's a defensive guy, and he got crapped on because the team didn't progress and Jones regressed. Well, he was never an offensive guy, and he was doing Belichick a favor. Now that they got Bill O'Brien, who was down with Saban, was coach at BC, was over with the Texans, he's back as the offensive coordinator. So I'm willing to give him one more year with this guy who knows offense. But I'm telling you, they're going to pull the cord on this guy if he doesn't improve this year and stop being a whiner and a guy who complains. And he was hit up by like 3 or 4 personal fouls, doing stuff that a quarterback shouldn't be doing to other guys, and that's not good. So the jury is still out on him, definitely. But to answer your question in a long-winded way, Don, I don't think the Patriots are going to contend for a few more years. Their time is done. They had a great run, but now it's somebody else's turn in that division, I think.
Roger?
Well, do you think that Belichick might retire if things keep on going the way they're going, Doug?
Well, Bill Belichick, the coach, is still good. Bill Belichick, the guy who picks talent, including free agents, he's misfired a lot. If you look at some of the guys he's had a hand in picking, you know, a Henry, Smith, the tight ends they got for these guys got millions of dollars. They didn't do anything. His track record of drafting wide receivers, I mean, that's been poor. So if you look at some of the guys that have made that team go over the past, it was free agents. It was bringing in somebody else's team's guy and making it work, not going out and picking out of college and developing that. He's had a really bad track record with that. I don't think Belichick's ready to retire. He all he is a football guy. I mean, that's all he knows. But I think he needs to see progress at the quarterback position. I think he needs to see that maybe 1 or 2 years I'll be back in a championship game maybe with this guy. You know, he has to think that he has a chance with his quarterback. And I think right now he doesn't know this guy Jones. I think we need to see him this year, one more year. He regressed last year. The second year of a quarterback is key, right? That's where they make the most growth.
Yes.
And he took a step back. So that's kind of scary a little bit.
Doug, let me sum it up right there. We're obviously very close to watching, a team in Tampa because what a run they had, even with Brady and so forth. How do you think are they going to be able to rebuild enough to be competitive this year, or are they going to be at the bottom of the barrel? They got the what's his face. I thought it was a high reward, low risk deal to sign Maynard to a 1-year deal. Right.
I think he's playing for his future, right? So they're not paying him a lot of money quarterback wise. If this guy comes out and has a great year, and they re-sign him, he's still at an age where he can contribute. If he doesn't, okay, won your lost year, but you get rid of him, and it's not really much of a loss. I think it's like any quarterback, Don. He needs to be surrounded. He needs to find time to throw. His guys need to get open. They need to catch the ball. I mean, football is the most team-dependent sport there is. You know, if you have one guy on a breakdown on a play, it's probably not going to work. So he needs the guys around him to be on the same sort of level of talent. So, I mean, listen, they need a running back, right? They got rid of Fournette. I mean, he was the guy. But, you know, they weren't as dominating this past year because their offensive line wasn't as dominating. That's the key, too. I don't know, Don. I think the jury's out on them. With a new quarterback, I got to wait and see on them.
All right, Doug, one last question before you go. Mike Cole's sitting by. He'll be with us in the next segment. But I just wanted to give you a chance because you've been very close to Dick Vitale over the last 15 or 20 years, and you've written so many great columns about the things that he's done. He's a one-man show for cancer, and I want to give a little publicity to both you and to Dick Vitale. Not that Dick needs any publicity, but what a job he did again this year. The 12 million mark again. It's unbelievable in Sarasota, Florida.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Don. To raise $12 million in New York or L.A. or Chicago or wherever, not that big of a deal. But to raise $12 million in one night in Sarasota, Florida, that is fantastic. And that goes to speak to Dick's passion for this. People are going to remember him more for this than as a broadcaster, which is saying something. His legacy will be helping cancer victims. Do you realize that since the V Foundation, I went to go watch his speech again, Galvano's speech, where he basically said we're going to start the V Foundation tonight. They've raised since 1993 $330 million for cancer, and Vitale has contributed about 60 or 70 million of that through his gala. And to think about the gala that started when he lived at TPC, it was at his house. The first couple of games, it was no big deal. It was just a bunch of, and it graduated, and now it's at the Ritz-Carlton, and it's the big event of the year, celebrity-wise. And next year there's going to be Derek Jeter down here. Jim Kelly is the honoree, because he battled cancer himself. So we have a lineup that is pretty much grade A next year. But the thing about Dick Vitale is every year he raises money, he wants to top it the next year. Like he made $11 million last year. He made $12.4 this year. What's he going to shoot for? $15 million next year? I mean, Jeff Bennett kicked in $1 million. The owner of the Lightning, he kicked in $1 million. A lot of people made big time donations. And but how? I talked to him. I say, Dick, you guys go back to the same guys every year. Don't they ever get tired of you doing it? The same people every year. But he's so honest. and sincere that people don't mind giving year after year after year. They have to beat these kind of money things that he makes.
Yeah, they love him. Everybody loves Dickie V.
Well, Doug, I want to thank you
Dickie
so
V.
much. Doug Fernandes has joined us, and Doug, we'll have you on periodically. Obviously, not only to talk about Dick Vitale, but he's in a special class now. I mean, there's nobody like him. I mean, you can say what you want to about broadcasting or anything else, part of his career. But for him to have this legacy that you're talking about is just so phenomenal. Nobody can believe it.
And well, listen, Don, I'd love to come back, but don't wait too long. Remember, I'm battling cancer here, so
I know
that
not only you. Dick got it, and he had to go by it, and you got it 2-3 years ago, and we've been fighting you going back and forth to the hospital. So continued success with yours, and we'll have you on soon.
I hope to be not a cadaver. I love joining you guys anytime you want me on. It was fantastic. I enjoyed it.